Today on With the First Pick, our college quarterback rankings are updated through week 10 of the season. Who's QB1, Rick? What happened to Carson Beck and or Drew Aller? Got some questions. We'll talk about all that and also highlight some of our favorite college performances from the non-QBs in a segment we call Pop or Drop. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's Rick Spielman. This is episode 196. Four away, Rick. Before we get going, how many days to the 2025 NFL Draft?
Well, since Debo scurried off his Ivy Tower and went on to do some personal business, and we have the lovely Claire producing today. So, Claire, do not be afraid to interrupt us like Debo does during this show. Claire?
All right.
Claire's trying to do her job and push the buttons, and Rick's already got demands. Just do your role, Claire, please.
Yeah, Claire, if you didn't know, there are 168 days left until the 2025 NFL Draft.
Crazy town. Also, less than 100 days until the Super Bowl. So things are a-moving. Man, this summer it was like 300 and something days.
Yeah, I know.
By the way, and we'll get around to doing this in the next few weeks, the five-star prospect reviews, the names keep rolling in, so keep them coming. And if you want to support the show, hit the old like button on YouTube. And as I mentioned, just leave a five-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave the name of a FBS, FC, or FCS draft eligible player, and we'll happily talk about him. We've gotten some. That's how we discovered Cameron Scatabo out of Arizona State last year. And that dude had a good year last year, and he's having an even better year this year. So we appreciate it. We like talking about these kids. I was looking through some of the submissions, Rick, and we got another request for Curtis Warwick. I think we got to go back and watch Curtis Warwick because I keep hearing people talk about the Indiana quarterback. We talked about him earlier, and neither you nor I was crazy about his performance. But that team in Indiana is undefeated, and there's some buzz. So we'll circle back. You okay with that?
Yeah, no. And the one thing I was just trying to read through some stuff, trying to stay up to date on the, what's it called? Current events.
Current events
that are going around in the collegiate level. And as you sit there and hear names popping up left and right, but I think he is, if I'm not mistaken, the leader or one of the top two leaders as far as pushing the ball downfield and making explosive plays downfield. So it's amazing how you may have one perception at the beginning of the year and then how these guys change their draft positions by the end of the year. And you have to give credit to him because he's taking that Indiana team. You got to give credit to Cignetti, the head coach, who came in and brought everybody, including the water boy from James Madison, to turn that program around at Indiana. But you got to give credit to the quarterback, too, because he has played outstanding this year. And from someone who probably was a late round free agent is going to continue to rise up draft boards. But they do have a big game coming up, I believe, against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Number 2 in the country. So we'll get an opportunity to see him against a very good defense. I know this is a tease, Ryan and Claire, if you're listening, I'm going to tease part of the show today.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to talk about a couple of defenders on the Buckeyes defense in a few minutes here on guys that I think are rising up draft boards as well.
Yeah, so that's a good point. It's always good to reevaluate guys if you saw them in September to make sure you know where they are by the time November, December gets around. And the other thing that's helping Curtis Warwick, a lot of these quarterbacks playing like crap. So he's going to move up by a process of elimination, it feels like almost. And before we get to the, you know what, actually, Claire, let's go to the With the First Pick QB rankings through week 10 graphic and see what has changed, if anything. We didn't do week 9 because last week, I think we did a mock draft or something last week. So we skipped over week 9. But Rick's list from week 9 remains the same. Cam Ward up top out of the U, Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado at number 2, Garrett Nussmeier, Carson Beck, Jalen Milroe. I have a couple changes, Rick. I have Cam Ward leapfrogging Shedeur Sanders by a millimeter. So Cam Ward's now my number 1.
Amazing how all of a sudden your list is shaping up towards the list I had. The only mistake I see on this is that I had, I believe, Ewers at number 5 and not Milroe. I had that flipped
that's
around.
on me. That's not on Claire.
And then the other person to get in quarterback to continue to watch who had a big week is Jackson Dart at Ole Miss.
Can I tell you a secret?
Yeah. Yes.
I'll tell you a secret. I had Jackson Dart on the QBs to talk about this week, and Debo said, no, let's talk about my Penn State's Drew Aller because I need to know what has to happen there. So we'll circle back on Jackson Dart, who did have a big week, and we should have talked about him, but Debo's the boss, so we got to do what he says. Next week, they have a big game against who they play? Alabama.
Hey,
Nope,
Claire,
Georgia.
can I ask Claire a quick question?
Yeah, if she's willing to answer.
If Debo is out of the office and on personal business, does that give you the right to veto anything and to do what you want to do since you're the boss of the show right now?
Ask me again in 6 months.
There you go. She's on new employee probation, so 6 months. The reins are off. She's running the place.
Just Claire, so you know, I've been doing this for 2 years now, and I'm still on probation, so it's not a 6-month thing.
We say, Rick, don't do this, and that's exactly what he just continues to do. So I misspoke, Rick. This weekend, a couple days from now, Georgia at Ole Miss. So we'll definitely talk about that game and Jackson Dart, whether Debo wants to talk about it or not. But you're exactly right, Jackson Dart. I gave some consideration here, but the bottom of my list, Garrett Nussmeier 3, Jalen Milroe 4, Carson Beck 5. So I've swapped Milroe and Beck from the last time we did the list on the show in week 8. But
what do you do with, can I ask you this?
Yeah.
With the Miller-Moss benching.
Oh, so let's talk about that because that's where I wanted to get the graphic up first. And so USC has benched Miller-Moss. Texas A&M have benched Connor Wigman. And here's what I'm going to say, because I actually asked our buddy Coop about this, Coop Patagna, who's been on the show, and we're going to have him back on soon again from 247. I don't think he'll mind me sharing this. So I just said to him, so does this mean Miller-Moss is going to transfer? Because that's typically the conversation you have when a pretty good player gets benched because so many teams need quarterbacks. He goes, I'm not sure what's going to happen. We'll have to see how it unfolds. It seems like his teammates love Miller-Moss. It's just trying to change things up. But it ain't good for your draft prospects, whether you're Connor Wigman or Miller-Moss, if you get benched, correct?
No, that's not a good thing.
So I would imagine, and I think both have eligibility. Certainly Connor does. Just come back. Whether you transfer or not, just come back, right?
Yeah, and just look at Cam Ward and what he did. He thought he was going to come out, actually found out that he's probably going to be a Saturday pick, which I think both of those guys are now, if they do come out. So go back and prove yourself and look at, there's plenty of examples through the history of this that players that do come back actually improve their draft stock. Last year, Ryan Wilson, here's a little unknown fact for you to put in your brain.
All right, write it down.
53, I believe, or 54 underclassmen came out, which was the lowest in the last 12 years. The highest was 101, but because of the NILs, because of the transfer portal, guys are starting to understand, instead of being a Saturday pick, go back to school. You're going to probably make more monies with your NILs or your insurance or whatever the financial packages are at these schools. Go back and try to help your draft stock. Why come out if you're going to be a Saturday pick? Because you're going to probably make more money staying in school. Cam Ward made more money staying in school. I know he got in the 7 figures. I don't know what the number is, probably for an NIL deal to go down to the U. And he would have got nowhere near that kind of guaranteed money if he would have came out last year.
I heard the number for Cam Ward was 0.5 Spielman dollars. So whatever you get, half of that.
That's 2 nickels. I just rubbing 2 nickels together, try to make a dime.
Hope for
just
the
trying
best.
to survive.
So I was talking to someone who runs NIL for one of these ACC schools, and they were saying the pitch they give to the parents is, look, 1% of these kids are going to have an opportunity to play in the NFL. That's it, just 1%. You can come here and get the 6 figures and be the number 2 wide receiver or whatever. So there's no rush to go to the NFL where it's, you're not holding people's hands. It's not like going to kindergarten where they walk you to every class and tell you where to sit. It's a business. And if you're not keeping up with what you're supposed to keep up with, you're going to be in the practice squad and then get cut. So I think that's the lesson, just in general. There's no rush, right?
No, there's no reason to. Like I said, with all these new NILs and even next year, there's some kind of salary cap coming in, I believe, that starts in January of 2025. Where
For the NIL?
Well, here's the caveat, and I'm not an expert at it, just talking to a lot of people, and I don't fully understand it. So if I am wrong, I apologize. But I believe the number is going to be around 21 million in revenue sharing for the big schools.
Okay.
And whatever percentage of that, and I'm guessing maybe 15 or 16% of that 21 million will go towards the football program. So there's some kind of cap that they're trying to put into collegiate football, and especially in the Power Four. But you can still supplement that with NIL deals. I don't know how that's going to be regulated. There's a lot of questions out there. Are these like 1-year contracts now? Or guys are still allowed to come in the spring and then transfer again after spring? So there's a lot to be cleaned up. But starting, I believe, in 2025, next season, that there will be some kind of cap placed, the 21 million, but that's for all athletics. Now it's up for how the teams divide that percentage up among the different sports at the universities. The other thing is the SEC may have different rules and regulations than the Big Ten, because those seem to be the two power conferences. But I still am going to predict this: within 2 or 3 years, you're going to see this super conference come together, whether it's sucking in the ACC and sucking in some of these other Power 4 schools, the Big 12, whatever that is, and coming up with some kind of super league. And I think just the sentiment, just talking to a few people that I have, it'll be some kind of salary cap system, which means these all of a sudden, and all may, and I know the universities don't want this, have to become employees. But then you can have a CBA just like nationally, so you don't have to worry about antitrust. And I know I sound like a lawyer right now. I didn't take law school, but I do watch a lot of Law and Order back in the day. So I
didn't
sound like a
school,
lawyer.
Claire, just so you know.
Claire, do I sound like a lawyer?
Not really, maybe a little bit.
You sound like Matlock's assistant. Okay, let me ask you this, Barrister Spielman. Ward and Sanders are coming out. I don't think there's any confusion about that. Garrett Nussmeier, should he come back?
I think that all these guys shouldn't consider that. I think to me there's 2 first-rounders in this class.
I'm with you on that. Carson Beck's a 5th-year senior. I don't know if he has a grad year
right
eligibility year remaining or not. If he does, I would encourage him to come back as well. Would you be against that?
No, not the way he's played.
Right. All right, so that's the updated rankings. At some point, we'd only have a top 2 because these guys have been so all over the place. Something else to keep an eye on next week: Alabama at LSU. So we'll get more data points, if you will, on Jalen Milroe and Garrett Nussmeier. Garrett Nussmeier plays well for 75% of the game, and then 25% of the game he just goes crazy. So yeah, he's got to bring that in. Maybe that's experience.
That will be another one of these, and that's what I love about this new combined, because you're seeing conferences, because you're seeing number 2 against number 3. We saw Ohio State versus Oregon. We saw Texas versus Georgia. This is going to be Texas A&M. So you're going to see the best of the best going against each other instead of maybe a smaller or a non-FBS school.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm just looking back at some of our rankings, going back even to week 6, and that was a month ago. We both had Shedeur first and Cam second. Jalen Milroe was third because he had just come off some of those good games, the Wisconsin game and the Georgia game. So, yeah. All right, we got a few more weeks left, 3 or 4 more weeks left, and we'll see how this ends up. But I have a pretty good idea.
But you also know we still have 168 days left.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
2025 NFL draft to figure this out.
It's always funny when things change after the season because someone has a good practice at the Senior Bowl, but we fall for it every time.
Not we.
All right, let's talk about some of these quarterbacks for pop or drop. Got 3 names to hit on. No Jackson Dart. You can thank Steve-O for that, but we'll talk about Jackson next week for sure. Let's start with Cam Ward. And they played against Duke. I thought this was one of his least consistent games that we've seen. Like, he missed a couple throws. He still played out of his mind. Don't get me wrong. And he'll miss a couple easy intermediate throws, and then he laced that wheel route to the tight end down the left sideline. He got lucky on the first touchdown to Xavier Restrepo. The ball got tipped. I knew what he was looking at, and he just underthrew it a little bit. But I think he's the most athletic quarterback in this class. And the reason I actually had him leapfrogging Shedeur is because of the athleticism, because we see every week in the NFL how important athleticism is inside the pocket for these quarterbacks. I think he's a little bigger. He does have a better arm, and he's a little more versatile in space. Shedeur is having a really good season, but I think in terms of when you look at the athletic measurables, I think Cam grades out a little better. That said, and I force myself to, I think if we're being honest with ourselves, he's probably should be picked between like pick 15 and pick 20. Like that's sort of he's not a top 5 pick in my mind.
No, but someone's going to over reach on these guys. So yeah, I think this kid, and watching him against Duke, was really making a point of emphasis to throw from the pocket. I understand the mobility and the ability to buy a second chance, and he does have an incredible arm to make some really good throws, but I think he is really trying to prove a point by being poised and patient in the pocket. And for a shorter quarterback, I do believe he finds the open windows to throw. I thought he missed some throws. I thought probably 3 or 4 of those throws should have been catches that were dropped by his receivers. He still does that bonehead play, throwing it across his body, across the field, which...
You didn't like that? That was a good throw, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, he's done that numerous times this year, which just drives me batty. You can't get away with those throws at the collegiate level, and what the heck makes you think you can get away with those throws at the next level? So, but I think that he'll be a first-round pick. I think he's not a day one starter. I think this guy needs to sit and develop. So if you think you're drafting a Caleb Williams or a Jaden Daniels, he's nowhere near ready to be a day one starter, although he may be forced into a situation depending on where he's drafted. But you got to give him kudos because he has them undefeated right now. They wouldn't be where they're at without Cam Ward as their quarterback.
No, and also worth noting, this seems to be a recurring theme with this U team. They were down 28-17 midway through the third quarter, ended up winning 53-31. So they went crazy in the final 20-25 minutes or so. And that seems to be their playbook. But they figured it out. And a large part of that, of course, is Cam Ward, and a large part of that is Xavier Restrepo, who we'll talk about here in a second, because he's the guy that we should have been talking about anyway. In terms of numbers, 25 of 42 for 400 yards, 5 touchdowns. Did have the dumb interception. Didn't run a whole lot in this game, 4 times for 7 yards. But he didn't do anything to hurt himself, and a lot of things that we continue to like about him. And I think, this just to say it out loud, I don't think you would disagree with this. He's gotten better from where he was in the summer to where he is now by, I think, a good margin.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Someone who is doing the moonwalk on what I just said, Carson Beck.
It's crawdadding. Which
he's
means
crawdadding. He's doing that's what you call Mike Renner, crawdad Mike. He's doing the crawdad Mike backwards.
Yeah.
All right. So we all had him as QB1 coming into the season based on how he was sort of the game manager of the offense last year at Georgia with all those playmakers, and he did what he's supposed to do and wasn't asked to do a whole bunch. But what he was asked to do, he did it. He's been asked to do a little more. And look, man, let's be real. They don't have any receivers on that team compared to Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. And I think typically the teams they go up against probably don't have this. The other team probably has better receiving options, but you're still at Georgia. So 27 of 42 against Florida, 325, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. The last interception was unlucky in that it got tipped, but the play before that, he should have thrown an interception anyway. I just feel like he's not seeing the field, and that seems like a pretty big issue when you're playing quarterback. Now, the wide open throws at the intermediate level, he'll wear you out if you are giving him easy access throws. He's fine throwing those things, and he'll throw them on time and accurately. But once the window's closed, it just feels like he tenses up and doesn't see what he's supposed to see and then makes poor decisions.
Yeah, he's had 2, well, I'll say 3 bad performances. The Texas performance, the bye week, which I'm sure he played horrible during the practice session and lost in the bye, and then came out and continued to throw interceptions in the Florida game. So whatever reason, the decision-making is baffling to me. The first interception, he threw it into coverage on a dig route, like you said. The second one, I didn't even know what the hell he was seeing. There was 22 guys around the receiver. And the third one, he got hit. And so when he released the ball, he does make some nice throws. He's really trying to emphasize pushing the ball down the field, which I didn't see last year. He has enough athleticism to make positive yards when he gets outside the pocket, when he uses his legs to scramble. So I see all that, but he is going to have a rough pre-draft process if he does come out. And there's going to be a lot of tape that people are going to be putting in those individual meetings with him and asking him, what am I seeing? Why not throw it there? But why in the hell are you still throwing it there? And, in this clip or picture that our dear producer Claire put up. Florida is wearing the white jerseys. And
He didn't know that. He didn't tell him that before the game.
Yeah, you try not to throw it to the white jersey guys. You try to throw to the red jersey guys.
All right, so I'm trying to envision. I know you don't like hypotheticals, but you're going to bring the crappy tape into the Senior Bowl meeting or the Shrine Bowl meeting or the Combine meeting, and let's say you're showing him that the second interception on the dig route where he didn't see the underneath linebacker standing there. What if he says to you, "I didn't see the linebacker standing there," even though you should understand in that coverage, which I think was too high. I don't know. You should know where the linebackers are. So what are you saying to that?
Well, there is more than just that. You're asking him if he didn't see it. He didn't see it. I mean, but why? What was there another option? Does he go through? Is he getting through his progressions? Why are you forcing it?
Yeah.
To that player there, and why are you making it? There's more than one poor decision. There's numerous poor decisions.
There are a couple.
Yeah, that are just head scratching. And
look, I'll give you a
if
positive.
he keeps saying, let me ask you this, Ryan Wilson, podcast GM yourself.
Thank you.
If he's sitting there and he keeps saying, well, I didn't see him, and it's like the 10th interception that you put up there and asked them, what are you doing?
I'm going to say, how do you feel about? I'm going to say, hey, Carson, how do you feel about getting into coaching? Because I don't know if we. I mean, look, you can't say I didn't see him every single time. Like that's not. You can't sell that.
No,
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe he didn't see him. Okay, that's one. What about the other 9?
Right. I think the first interception, he just. It's funny now. I literally think of the first interception, he did not see the underneath cornerback coming off the kid in the flat. But whatever. I mean, it's still an interception. It's a problem. Let's end on a positive though, Carson. He did lead the team down to the go-ahead touchdown. He threw that slant in the end zone that the tight end didn't catch. It hit him in the hands. I thought that was a good throw, and then he came back and threw the screen that led to the go-ahead touchdown. So that's a positive. And to your point, he can spin the ball. It's just 45% of the time he's doing things that don't add up, and that number keeps going up because we talked a lot of good about him early on. We talked good about him in the second half of the Georgia game, the 2 games after that, the Alabama game, excuse me, and then it's just been like a straight downhill. So I don't know, man. I don't know if he has any eligibility left as a 5th year. If he does, why not? I don't know if Georgia has guys behind him too. They're trying to push him out. I don't know any of that stuff. We'll have to talk to our buddy Coop about that because that's his wheelhouse. It's
been a total shite show.
Yeah, I think you can say that. All right. Speaking of that, let's go to Drew Aller.
I was like, why do we have to can we do some like pop guys? We got pop guys coming up, right?
Yeah, we do. And like I told you, Jackson Dart was nixed by the boss, even though I was excited with the way he played. And just to back up, Cam Ward was the pop for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cam Ward's pop for you. Carson's a drop, and I'm going to guess that Drew Aller's a drop as well. But I will say this in Debo's defense, and he is right. Those dudes outside of Tyler Warren for Penn State, the receivers and tight ends, do not get open. I don't know if it's on purpose, if they're angry at Drew Aller, or they're just not physically gifted enough to get open consistently. But you go watch at the top of most of his drops, those guys are struggling to get open. And whatever. I mean, you can blame whoever you want to blame, but I want to at least put that out there as part of the reason that you don't like Mr. Roboto. I thought he got unlucky in the interception. A great play by our buddy Igbinosun in the end zone. That was a great takeaway. That's another example of the wide receiver. Just the ball hits you, man. Catch the ball. It's right before the half. Turn the tide going into halftime. And instead, it's a turnover, and you don't get. Not only do you not get any points out of it, you lose the ball. He's a good athlete. We talk about that all the time. I don't know why they didn't give the ball to Tyler Warren at the end of the game in the 4th down. That wasn't Drew Aller's fault, but they didn't. I think he needs to come back. He reminds me a little bit of Jacob Eason, who we talked about before, who played at Washington after transferring from Georgia, and he has all the tools. It's just not putting it all together yet. And I think right now I would not take him until day 3.
He played this game, and I think he was hurt some because he had a left knee brace on.
That's right. That's important. Game. I should point that out. Thank you.
So he did make some plays with his legs, although I think he's a better athlete than Eason. So I'll disagree with you on that. But it looked like.
What did I say?
Huh?
What are you disagreeing on? What did I say?
You're a comp. I think he's
he's a better athlete than Eason. Gotcha. Okay, yeah, fair enough. He is. Yeah, I give you that. I just meant the big arm and the size. But yeah, go ahead.
And then I thought he was kind of guiding the ball or didn't have enough pepper on the ball this game. A lot of it, I think, had to do with the knee and the big brace on his knee. But because I thought at times you see his lower body, and I think it was because of the knee and the injury that he's just throwing with all arm and not using his lower body, because he struggled to step into throws. I thought he guided the ball, and that's where the robotics come in for me instead of just throwing the ball. Now, I made a really nice throw to 44 down the sideline, but and then the great interception by the Ohio State kid that you talked about. But to me, he's just a game manager at best right now. I don't.
Let me ask you Debo's question from last podcast. If he's on the Ohio State team with those weapons, what does that look like?
I love your hypotheticals because they were unrealistic in draft meetings. If he played for,
no, I'm asking just in general, not draft meetings, but if you're looking to,
maybe it's better, maybe it's not. I mean, McCord played with guys, your guy up at Syracuse, and he still has problems figuring out what color jersey to throw to as well.
I tell you what, man,
you would say because is it lesser competition, or has he played better at Syracuse than he did at Ohio State last year? I'm asking you. So
well,
I'm throwing the hypothetical back in your lap.
You noticed after the Pitt game where he threw 5 interceptions, we haven't talked a lot about Kyle McCord.
No, we haven't.
But that's a good point, and those are things to consider. The ACC competition isn't the Big Ten competition. Kyle McCord took a couple steps back, and that was very disappointing for me, and I would imagine Kyle McCord as well. They won last week against Virginia Tech. But good news, by the way, November 30th, with the first pick RBs rolling out to Syracuse again because they're hosting Cam Ward and the U.
Oh, very good.
Maybe we should get you up here
for
that.
Word in person. I'm anxious to hear your.
Yeah, I'm going to bring on binoculars too. All right. So, do you think Drew Aller should come back? Do you think he?
Yes.
Do you think he should transfer?
No, I'm not going to ever encourage a kid to transfer.
Oh, right. You can't do that. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what that means either. It depends on, you bring it in.
You're transferring into a better situation. Yeah. Sometimes the grass looks greener on the other side and it isn't.
Yeah. And he hasn't been benched, unlike Miller Moss or Connor Wigman. So, and I don't know if those kids are transferring either. It's just a conversation that people have once you find your way to the bench and are no longer the number one. All right. I'm going to give Drew Aller a drop, but I'm going to give it with the asterisk that people aren't getting open either. They're not helping him out.
And he played with a bad knee.
And he had a bad knee. I'm less down on his performance last week than Carson Beck's. Are you taking Carson Beck in the second round? I'm not sure if I am right now.
Not the way he's played the last 3 weeks.
Okay. I wanted to
and I'm counting the bye.
Yeah, you're on. You must have got some practice reports about how that bye week went. All right. So that's it for the quarterback popper drops. We would have loved to talk about Jackson Dart. Send your complaints to Debo. But next week we will be talking about Jackson Dart because they are, as I mentioned, playing Georgia.
All right. What can we ask Claire to make an executive decision? Could we talk about Jackson Dart next week, Claire?
Why not?
There you go.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, Claire doesn't want any drama. She doesn't want any Rick drama. Debo warned her. All right, Claire, what do you think? We should take a break right now, and we'll come back and talk about some of the non-quarterbacks that we liked, mostly pops. Sure. Let's do that. We'll talk about that right after this.
And the ball is caught! It's a miracle! This is how we do where I come from. Yeah. It's going down, you can feel it in the crowd. Type of thing you want to be around. Jumping up in the air to the 30 with some nifty moves. Speakers got a little too loud. You know the sound, got enough to go around. We about to get it, no doubt.
All right, if you're listening, wherever you listen to podcasts, we just had an audio commercial that showed the highlights from last week in the NFL to promote CBS games this week. I don't think I asked you this, Rick. Have you ever seen anything like what Saquon Barkley did in that move where he jumped backwards over the kid?
No, never. That was unique.
Insane when they had a sideline shot where the from the Eagles sideline when it happened, and grown men who have grown up around insane athletes are like, I can't believe that just happened, and I saw it with my own eyes.
Yeah, no, that's insane. What do
you think if you're a Giants fan?
I would say, boy, that was an insane move. I've never seen that before.
Thank God they got Tyrone Tracy, because otherwise they would have even more reason to be upset.
We talked about it last time. They were one of my sleepers as far as a nice draft class, and they're slowly building it. You could probably said the disappointment of the Lions fans. I'm not saying they're going to be the Lions, but first 2 years in Detroit, it wasn't pretty either as they were building this roster.
I want to give a shout out to Claire for having this Saquon Barkley clip ready to go. Look at that. That
Now-
is nuts.
Yeah, that's crazy. So
Good for Saquon and the Eagles. All right, let's talk about some of these non-quarterback popper drops for week 10. Let's go back to the U, Xavier Restrepo. We should have been talking about him for a while because every week he makes plays. And I'm going to give him a comp just to get you angry to go off the top here. Because he's a do everything. He's mostly does it from the slot. He's been around for a while, and I think he's a really good route runner. I think he's probably quicker than fast, although he outran some guys to the end zone in this game against Duke. My comp for him, Wes Welker.
no, I got a better comp.
All right, what's your better comp?
I agree that he's a smart, crafty, plays like a veteran, knows how to get open. Probably his athletic ceiling is limited. I don't think he's going to run a 4.3 or 4.4. But he's a much better football player than he is athlete. And he has very good hands, although I'd like to see him maybe make more contested situations, come up with contested catches a little bit better.
Yep.
But he's smart, steady, good route runner, good football player. You ready for this comp?
All right, what do you got?
Puka Nacua.
Wait, what? You would reach through the monitor and slap me about the head if I said Puka Nacua. Puka is huge.
This kid's, I mean, he's he's over 200, right?
Yeah, I think he's under 6 feet, around 200, unofficial.
Right. But is everything that you're saying negatively about Puka and positively about Puka sound the same?
That's true. 4.5-ish or whatever. Xavier doesn't have an injury history, I don't think, but I get the slot part. All right. Somewhere between Puka and Wes. I do agree about that's a good point about the contested catches. He made some in this game, and he also had some that I'm sure he thought he should have had in the ball. And he was able to hold on to it. Now, I would imagine when you mentioned in the Cam Ward conversation about some of the drops, the first target of the game, I think, was on that end, and he dropped that. And I'm sure he thought he should have caught that as well. So focus drops, but I think he's a reliable middle of the field player, and those guys can make a living in the NFL. What do you think about day 2-ish?
I'm day 3.
You think so?
Yeah, Puka went in day 3.
That was injury related, though. All right,
I'm saying day 3.
Okay.
Maybe third. I can see if he runs a little faster, but I have him 4th, 5th round.
Oh, interesting. So here's why I ask. Because reliability, I think sometimes we overvalue athleticism over reliability. And I think in this case, Xavier's reliability outpaces any concerns about his lack of athleticism, whatever that means.
He's a better football player than athlete.
Right. I'm just saying that sometimes, like, we love the A.D. Mitchells of the world when all we needed was, I can't even say Ladd McConkey because he's a great athlete, but whoever I don't know what the alternative. All right, whatever. You give him a pop or not?
Pop.
Yeah, pop. Puka Nacua. I'm going to make that note. So when I use that comp later and you yell at me, I can bring it back in your face. All right, next up.
With it.
Let's go back to Penn State. Talk about some of these Penn State-Ohio State matchups. Going to do the edge rushers on both sides. Let's start with Abdul Carter. So just so you know, because we're listening here, we're going to talk Abdul Carter from Penn State, the edge rusher, JT Tuimoloau, and Jack Sawyer, the edge rushers for Ohio State. I'm going to start here, Rick, and let's see if you agree. Abdul Carter is the best athlete of the three?
Yes.
Oh, good. I think he's the most twitched up of the three?
Yes.
I think he has the highest ceiling in terms of he's more raw than the other two from Ohio State.
Yes.
Oh, all right. Here's one more. And then he had 2 sacks in this game, 4 hurries. I also think he will be drafted first among the three.
Yes.
Jeez. A lot of agreements. One last one. I think he's better as a pass rusher than he is against the run.
I think he's pretty good against the run as he's learning how to play at the edge. So
he's just off-ball linebacker until this year. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I watched all his pass rushes for the entire year, not just the Ohio State game, because this is one of my guys that I really am getting excited about the more he continues. And where he was at the beginning of the year to where he is now, there's no hesitation as a pass rusher off the edge. They still put him over, line him up as a 2-point in a 2-point stance over the guards and centers, and he's an athletic mismatch when they use him that way. He is really starting to put combination pass rush moves together. There's no question about his twitch off the edge. He's added a counter spin move that I've seen over the last couple of weeks that really has improved from the beginning of the season, and he plays with his hair on fire. So he is a little bit Chop Robinson-like to me, except bigger. But I think his ceiling is high because new position and because I see him every week continuing to get better. Now, the Ohio State, they had to move their left guard, a guy that we'll be talking about, I'm sure, down the road here.
Yep, Donovan Jackson, right?
Yes, to left tackle, which is the first time he's ever lined up out there.
He didn't do bad. I'll give him credit.
Yeah, but he's not a tackle.
No, but I mean, he held his own in some pretty tough circumstances.
Yeah, I give him A for effort, even though effort starts with an E.
Now, Abdul Carter got the best of him a few times, but I mean, you weren't going to expect him to go out there and be Jonathan Ogden either. So you got to fearless.
No, kudos to the kid for going out and showing that he can maybe get you through an NFL game at left tackle, although he's definitely going to need some help with chips and other things if he ever had to do that.
Right.
But kudos to him for doing that and helping Ohio State team, because after they lost Josh Simmons, they had been struggling to fill that left tackle spot.
And Josh Simmons, for people who may not pay attention to Ohio State football, was probably going to be a first-round pick had he come out. So that's a huge loss. Abdul Carter, let's see how high you're willing to go here, given that there are very few quarterbacks in this first-round class. Top 10 pick?
I would say top 15.
Okay. And that can certainly change. All right. Yep. Pop for Abdul. And I think you hit the reasons why. He keeps getting better. JT Tuimoloau, let's start there. I think he's another guy who plays with his hair on fire. Just not – he and Jack Sawyer, I'm not sure weight-wise, but they look to be a few pounds heavier than Abdul Carter. They're not as twitchy, but they're more solid at the point, it feels like. I still think those guys are top 50 guys. I'm not sure if they're first-round guys, but I could be wrong. I think they're pretty similar. I'm actually not sure. I think Jack Sawyer's played a little more consistently and flashed a little more, but what do you think about these two?
Well, JT, I thought, has had much better production this year. I think right now he has 7 sacks, 5 quarterback hits, 8 quarterback pressures. And that was what we talked about from a negative standpoint last year. He was more disruptive than productive. But I think this year the production has definitely improved, especially as a pass rusher. I think he has some twitch off the edge, not Carter twitch, but Abdul Carter twitch, but he is twitchy off the edge. He has really done a nice job with the coordination of his hands and feet as a pass rusher. I think he's really polished up as a pass rusher. He knows how to work edges. Last year, I've seen him getting pushed by the pocket. This year, I'm seeing him bending and dipping through the outside edge or the outside shoulder of the offensive tackle, and much better awareness of where the quarterback is in the pocket. He's been effective from both the left side and the right side. And I think he has done a really good job getting off blocks at the point versus a run and having better production there as well. And he plays hard down in and down out. So last year, he was a little bit like this each game. This year, he's kind of been a steady rising performer. And his best game, in my opinion, was that Oregon game, where I thought when the national spotlight was on him, he really stepped up and took it to another level in that game.
Yeah, in terms of last year's ups and downs, he showed up against Olaf Ashnu every time they matched up the last 2 years. The Penn State game, he was ready to go. What about Jack?
Jack is probably not as twitchy, probably more powerful as a pass rusher off the edge, doesn't have as many sacks, but he is probably has more quarterback hits and pressures. He is more of a speed to power guy. I don't think he is as fluid using moves or fluid in his lower body as JT is, but he does have a sense where the quarterback is in a pocket. He can counter off that power move. I've seen numerous times this year where he's walked the quarterback or walked the offensive tackle back into the quarterback's lap. He does a good job in the run game as well. I think both of these guys are first line talent maybe,
Yep.
in that 25 to 32 range. If not, they're not going to last very long in the second day. But I think both of them have made a wise decision coming back, and really, I thought help improve their draft stock this year.
I don't have comps for either off the top of my head. I don't know if you have a Rolodex comp for either in terms of, especially Jack Sawyer's one. I think this summer I said something like Lamar Woodley because of the thickness, but I think Lamar was a little more twitchy. Also from the school up north, so I probably shouldn't say that. I'm trying to think of a
Yeah,
more
I had a
power-
tough time with Jack's comp.
Okay.
JT, because I thought I do think he's a little twitchier. I kind of had a pro comp of Jermaine Johnson when he came out of Florida
That's a
State.
good one. That's a good one. And Jermaine went bottom of the first round. The Jets
Yeah.
traded back up to get him. And Jermaine from high school. He went to Georgia, then Florida State, and had a great final season of ACC football. And as
He
you
started
know,
out at Last Chance U, then to Georgia, then to Ohio State.
and like I said, him in high school. We talk him at the combine, and that young man has an edge. He was very angry about the way ACC football was perceived and the fact that he balled out there and people didn't, perhaps in his mind at least, take it as seriously as if he had done that at the SEC. And I think he used that as motivation. And he got hurt.
He was having a great, first 2 years until, he got injured this year. I think he blew his Achilles out.
Yeah. Also, I should take this. I don't think I've said this yet on the show. I was talking to our buddy Lige Douzable about it, who obviously played for the Jets for a while. And we were talking the other day. I think I owe Will McDonald and the Jets an apology, because remember how I was gloating when the Steelers traded up to get Broderick Jones and leapfrog the Jets to get the left tackle that they needed. And all Will McDonald, the edge rusher at Iowa State's doing has been balling out. So Jermaine Johnson hopefully gets healthy and returns to form, but they had a backup plan, and obviously Will McDonald, and they have Hassan Reddick now. So my apologies to the Jets and Will McDonald for that, because it's worked out for you and not so good for the Steelers. All right.
Claire, did that sound sincere or not?
I'm going to stay out of this one.
Claire's just trying to do the paperwork she has to do to okay the show. She's not listening to us. All right, JT and Jack, I'm going to give them pops.
Yes, I would too.
All right, so pops all around. Now, this is going to be interesting. We haven't talked a lot about running backs.
Good class, very good class. Every time I turn on a running back, they're good. It's a
very good class. So the only running backs we've talked about, of course, are Ashton Genty, understandable, and then Debo made us talk about the Penn State running backs. Both good players.
Yes.
But now we're going to expand the running back spectrum here. And I've heard a lot of buzz about Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, so I was excited to watch him. We're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about Lige Douzable's guy, too, RJ Harvey out of UCF, where Lige went to school. Let's start with Caleb Johnson. I knew nothing about Caleb Johnson because I don't watch a lot of Iowa games. That offense scares me at times. But they played Wisconsin, and he went 23 carries, 132 yards, 3 touchdowns. I was underwhelmed, and I don't mean that as disrespect to Caleb Johnson. He wasn't I was expecting more juice. I didn't see it. He's sort of a put his foot in the ground and go north-south guy. He runs a little too high for me at times. Now, if there's a hole there, he's going to hit it and run hard. But I wasn't as pleasantly surprised as I was hoping to be. And that can change. It's just the one game that I watched. What were your thoughts on Caleb, who's a big, I think he's 6 feet, 220-ish in terms of the size weight?
Yeah, big, thick, physical back. I think he's best between the tackles. I think he has really good inline vision and is patient. He's kind of a one-cut downhill runner. He does have contact balance. I did see him finish runs in space. Watch the Michigan State game. He had broke a couple in that game. But he's not electric or that elite speed in space. He does a nice job catching the ball out of the backfield as an outlet. He does need to clean up his technique in pass pro. Type of back that the more carries he gets, and I watched a lot of his carries this season, he is going to wear a defense down. Now, he has some tread on his tires, but I thought he's going to be a solid Friday pick, maybe 3rd round.
Wow. Okay.
And
you liked him a lot more than I did.
Yeah.
Do you like him for the ability just to wear guys out? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, but I think he has very good inline vision, and I think he's patient, lets holes develop in front of him. He has better speed than you think. I think he may not run fast, but he plays faster. And like I said, go back and watch the Michigan State game. He got into space and finished some runs in the open field in that game, which popped out to me. Watched him in the Ohio State game. He had a good game against Ohio State, I thought. So I thought this guy's going to be a Friday, probably the 3rd round pick. And my pro comp to him, you're going to love this one.
What is it?
Roshan Johnson out of Texas.
A good one. So Roshan ran in the 4.5s. You think he's a 4.5 guy?
I think it's going to be close to that in the.
And that's fine. You don't have to. I don't care if you run 4.2 or not. You don't need to do that as a running back.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he was a little bit Roshan Johnson like for me.
I thought Roshan was a day 2 guy.
You're pretty complimentary of my comps.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, I thought Roshan was a day 2 guy. He ended up going day 3. I thought he's a little better athlete than Caleb, but again, I'll go back and watch some more. He was returning kicks for a while at Texas as well. But good. I'm glad you liked him. I'm glad you were happy to see him. I was expecting a little more athletically because you know why, and that's on me. I'd seen some people say online that perhaps he should be in the running back 1 conversation, and that's you can't compare him to Ashton Genty. That's just unfair.
No.
All right.
2 Ohio State kids either. So
yep, fair enough.
But if you want to start, comping, and I have to go back and look at him. I don't, the Gordon at Oklahoma State is another big back. You got to put him in these big back category.
Ontario Hampton out of UNC.
Yeah. Well, Hampton I like better because I think he's more explosive and faster. But I'm going to say in that big back category, when you kind of put him in the clusters, then you start stacking him in those clusters on what, with this in that category. Right. I think he's going to measure up to a lot of those bigger backs in coming out in this year's draft.
All right. I'm still going to give him a pop, and it sounds like you are too. I was just athletically the way people
just do your homework on a guy. Don't read the internet.
Well, I learned that lesson the hard way. Next up, I didn't read the internet on this guy, but Lee J was in my ear about it because Lee J went to UCF. But I was happy to watch him. This was a pleasant surprise. RJ Harvey, who's had a really good season, and they played Wisconsin. Is that right? No,
Arizona.
Arizona, thank you. But he went 23 for 185, 3 touchdowns. Like Caleb, he's not used a lot in the pass game, but he looks like he has pretty good hands. He'll catch the ball away from his body even. This dude has some juice. Now he's sawed off. He's not a big back Caleb bucket category, Caleb Johnson guy. My comp for him, you'll love this. I thought he's a little twitchier version of Jaylen Warren.
I would agree.
There we go.
Yeah.
Now I kept writing down he likes to bounce it outside, but he kept beating guys around the edge. Now he showed the ability to run between the tackles and then just outrun guys to the end zone as well. But he is thick lower half, and he runs low, and he'll run through some arm tackles. So he was a fun little watch here. I liked him better than Caleb Johnson in terms of you needed a running back with a little juice, and whatever round you're going to take him in. I liked him a little bit more.
I would put him behind Caleb Johnson. I watched.
All right, tell me why.
Arizona, Florida, Colorado, and TCU were the 4 games I watched on him. So, and he was productive in every game I watched. In fact, they gave him direct snaps out of shotgun and let him run from taking a direct snap. He's undersized, but he's really thickly built. This guy can stop and start on a dime. The biggest thing negatively, I agree with everything you said on the positives. Where I don't like him is I think he dances too much at times before he gets to the line of scrimmage.
I get it.
And I think he takes some negative runs when he doesn't have to because he's trying to do too much at times. Instead of if it's not there, and he does, you got to give him credit because he has some creativity and he runs hard for a smaller back, but he's thick. But at times he just dances too much and leaves some production on the field. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. Saw him cut a couple wheel routes out of the backfield, so I think his hands are good. He's going to be a little bit of a liability in pass protection, but this guy did pop out and against very good competition. It's not like playing against the smaller schools. This guy's popped out in Colorado, the TCU, the Florida game. This guy continues to show up week in and week out. So
why do you have him behind Caleb Johnson?
Because I think Caleb Johnson is bigger. He's more efficient, and I think he's a type of back. This guy will be this guy's not a bell cow to me. I think Caleb can be more of that bell cow type. I think this guy can be a solid, 2 in the league as a change of pace type back. But I don't see him as a bell cow.
All right. I get it. We'll see how this pans out. We got a long way to go. As Lee J mentioned, Should he get an invite to Shrine or Senior or both or whatever, he'll have an opportunity to change some minds there as well. Pop?
Yes. Pop.
All right. Everyone gets a pop in the non-QB.
Because everybody was played good.
Everyone played well. I wanted to counteract the quarterback conversation we had. All right, let's take one more quick break, Rick. We'll come back and look at some of these games to watch, and then we'll get out of here.
Baby, we are gonna start a fire.
From world-renowned clubs
Simply devastating.
to worldwide stars.
Wrexham have done it. This incredible ride continues.
The English Football League on CBS Sports Network, and stream every match live on Paramount Plus.
All right, Rick. Last few minutes here, we mentioned Georgia at Ole Miss. Chance for the two quarterbacks, one in Carson Beck, to right some wrongs, and Jackson Dart to keep doing what he's doing. I mean, it's not inconceivable that at the end of this conversation, Jackson Dart ends up going ahead of Carson Beck. Is that too crazy?
Well, who the hell knows now? Jackson, I told you were crazy maybe a month ago. Now, who the heck knows? So, yeah, this should be an interesting matchup. There's a lot of NFL talent on both sides in this game.
Yeah, we talked about Jalen Walker, the linebacker for Georgia, and Mikael Williams. We talked about him last week as well, the edge, and Malachi Starks, all the defensive players they have there. And Ole Miss, we've talked about Trey Harris, the wide receiver, and we've talked about Jackson Dart. So we'll keep an eye on those guys.
What's
Alabama to
the
LSU?
other guy that I really want to see is Prince.
Princely Umeli. I have to look up his last name. I apologize.
Yeah.
But the transfer from Florida, the edge rusher,
Yes.
who you took in the first round of our mock draft last week, I believe.
Yeah, well, I didn't have him I had him at the bottom there, but I think from the summer scouting.
Yeah.
And I haven't done him yet this year. I got to do him yet this year, but I thought that kid had tremendous upside with his length and his athleticism.
Yeah, he transferred from Florida. And he has a couple of brothers playing in the SEC too. Alabama's at LSU. Just
another big one.
Both quarterbacks need to play better. We know about Ryan Williams. He's 17, but he's still fun to watch. Kyron Lacey is my guy. That's my rat hole player that everyone knows about. He's one of my favorite players, the LSU wide receiver. Nussmeier, the two tackles for LSU. I haven't talked to anyone. I don't know what Emory Jones, the right tackle's plans are. I think he certainly hasn't been as consistent as Will Campbell, the left tackle, so I don't know if he's going to come back or what he's thinking right now, but a big game could certainly help him.
Will Campbell had a little bit of a struggle because I watched that against Texas A&M, so he needs
okay.
And Nick Scorton.
Scorton got after him.
Yeah, which you need to go watch that game because there was some holes in Campbell's game.
Nick Scorton versus Will Campbell. That's the matchup that that's what you want to see when you're evaluating these players. Tell me about Overton for Alabama, because I've heard some buzz about him. He's the edge rusher. I haven't watched him, and I wouldn't be able to point him out walking down the street, but I know there's been some buzz about his potential.
He has a very high ceiling. He is raw as all get out, but his length and athleticism do pop out on tape. I think he's a little bit not ready to be a superstar yet, but he has that potential. I think it would be best if he came back for another year. I think if he came out and again, way too early to tell, I think he would definitely improve his draft stock if he went back for another year. My not comp to him, but a guy that came back that really helped his draft stock this year was Nick Scorton at Texas A&M. I know he transferred from Purdue, but went from maybe a Friday pick to a top 15, top 20 pick this year. I think with Overton, it would be the same type of situation where you see the traits there, but he still needs time. And I think he can make a lot of money if he returned to school.
Florida's also at Texas. Florida
was
in that Georgia game for a while till DJ Ladley got hurt.
Getting more competitive.
Florida?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if their freshman hadn't gotten hurt, maybe that game's a little closer than it was. But this is an opportunity for Quinn Ewers to continue to fix things. I don't know how you want to put it. Would you say he's hurt or helped himself so far through this season, Quinn Ewers?
And he's just so inconsistent to me.
Yeah.
1 week he's very good. Next week he's horrendous. So the one thing I knew, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, even Drake May, even though they had they weren't as high as highs and as low as lows. They were more even keeled. Like they may wiggle a little bit here and there, these guys are like going up and down the
Yeah.
screen like ridiculous.
It's a lot of roller coaster. And Isaiah Bond, the wide receiver out of Texas, we've talked about keeping an eye on him. And, of course, the 2 tackles at Texas are going to get drafted. And certainly Kelvin Banks Jr. has a chance to be drafted pretty high in the first round. Michigan's at Indiana. We talked about Curtis Rourke, so that could be a game we circle back to because that defense at Michigan is pretty good. We'll see if Will Johnson plays. I don't think Will Johnson played last week, the cornerback for Michigan in their game. I think that's it in terms of things we'll be watching that may affect what we talk about. Also worth noting, Rick, next week on Tuesday's show, I'm going to roll out with the first pick, mid-season, all-rookie team. You're going to pick your handful of players. I'm going to pick my handful of players, and then we'll compare. By compare, I mean you can yell at me, and I'll have to tell you did a great job so you don't get your feelings hurt.
Thank you. I need the self-esteem build up.
And I think even though Debo's off on his taking some personal days on the beach, I think next Thursday we're going to do under the radar players on the college side and just good football players. So maybe we'll sneak in a couple of those 5-star reviews because there's some names in there that we need to talk about that are guys that aren't necessarily being widely talked about, but just something to look for in terms of programming. Otherwise, that's all I got. You got anything else?
Yeah, no, I am headed up tomorrow to Orlando. My daughter, my special needs daughter, qualified for the state championships in the Special Olympic pickleball tournament.
Love it.
And she does not know this yet. So, but just keep it on her hat. We were just informed that tomorrow night at the Special Olympics banquet, she's receiving the most inspirational athletic award.
Love
for
it.
Lee County. So
thank God she doesn't listen to the podcast, so it won't be a spoiler for her. Oh, that's great. And as you inform me, you're not the coach, so that has something to do with the success of pickleball.
I will be just the dad in the stands.
Claire, Rick told me a story that he serves as the interim trainer when he goes to these sporting events when the real trainer isn't there. So my advice to people: do not get hurt if Rick Spielman's the only medical option that you have, because
because you've said it on numerous times that my bedside manner is something to be desired.
F-.
Yes.
Rub some dirt on it. Get up.
Yeah, suck it up. My God, it was only your pop your shoulder back in. Let's go.
Let's go. We got. Yeah. I mean, I had a dental issue a few weeks ago, Claire. And I was late to the podcast. Zero sympathy from Rick. I'm doing better now, Rick, in case you were wondering.
Yeah, no, I was worried about you. Really, I haven't slept for months since you told me about the dental.
Sleep easy, my friend.
It goes back to that podcast with my brother. It's a mental toughness test.
Tough love. That's right. All right, that's it. 196 in the book. 4-way. So 2 weeks from today, Rick, 200. Almost a 2-year anniversary of the show. So celebrate accordingly.
What do we? Will they do like balloon? Claire, can you do balloons or something for the 200th show?
We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, that's a hard no. All right. As I mentioned, next Tuesday, we're going to do the all rookie team. So look for that. In the meantime, thanks to my guy, Rick. Thanks to Claire for producing. And thanks to all you guys who watch and love it. Have a good weekend. See you next week.